All right, so we're going to run through, I'm not going to go through everything on this because you can look this stuff up pretty easily, but just to kind of give you a sense, these are the 6 different 5.0 sections. We mostly wanted to show this because it gives you a sense of how the elements are broken down. So there's the topic area, which is the practice management, the division. And then that division, that exam, has, in this particular case, 4 sections. And so you see these Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, Section 4. And so Section 1 is all about business operations. Section 2 is about financial stuff, risk aspects, kind of development and how you develop a practice. Project delivery ideas, like what kind of way that your practice approaches project delivery issues, both for you and in terms of working with contractors. And then practice methodologies, right? So these are the sort of the different areas that the practice management exam is going to look at. The little numbers down below, these are talking about, so these are the sections, and then underneath each of those sections, there are specific objectives. And so for business operations, there are 4 objectives. And on that example, 3 of them are the simpler ones, the understanding and applying, and 1 of them is the more complex one. So the objective is where they are kind of narrowing in on these different kinds of types of questions that are going to be. As you look through, some of these topics are going to be more heavily weighted on the sort of simpler end of the questions. Other ones, like the practice-wide delivery, all of them are in the more complex zone. So that kind of tells you when you're studying for these things, kind of the type of stuff you should be studying for. Now, I say that at the same time, like, you can't overthink these things. It's there are going to be some aspects to this that you just are, you're just studying for it. You're just trying to get the information. You're trying to, get experience. I wouldn't overly worry about it. What I would use this idea for, these 2 different categories, is just to kind of give you a sense of the kinds of things they're looking for. So it kind of backs you up when you're doing some studying. You kind of know, yeah, I'm in the right track. So that's practice management. It's got the 4 sections, and then each of those sections has the different objectives in it. Project management, similar. This one has 5. You can see, the same kind of breakdown. And when you look at something like project management, we look at something like contracts, right? We're sort of looking at this one. So it's only got 4 different objectives in it, but it's also a really big part of the overall pie, right? So this is also a way for you to start really, making sure, like, you don't want to spend all your time studying for project management on, some of these smaller, like resource management. That would be a good thing to know about, but that's going to be, maybe 10% of the exam. So you want to make sure that you're balancing your studying time with the amount of the types of questions you're likely to get. And then once we get into the actual sort of the 4 that go together in terms of, now we're in the actual project. So we're at the beginning of the project, programming and analysis. You can see these have all been 95 questions and about 3 hours 15 for the actual test time. The amount of time that you block out actually is 4 hours, but then there's a few time periods in there that get taken out for in between different moments and breaks and things. So the actual test time is about 3:15 approximately. So on this one, so again, this is a smallish exam. And it has one big area, right? That building analysis and programming, that's a huge big part of this exam. But it has all these other ones, and you can start to see where the key pieces of information are coming by which kinds of questions they're going to be asking. Project planning and design, now we're in the big exams, the 2 big ones. These are 120 questions. This is an hour longer. This is 4 hours and 15 for the actual exam time. This one has 5 sections. And then again, each one has their own objectives, and those objectives have the 2 different types of understanding and applying, or more cognitively difficult ones. And so you can kind of run through, you'll start noticing that codes and regulations shows up a lot. You'll notice that environmental and context conditions show up a lot. It's just that it's different specific to this moment in time of the project. So what would the code issues be at the beginning of a project? All right, project development and documentation. Now we're into the second of the really big ones. Now we're finalizing a project as we're going along. So the documentation stuff is going to be really about, which is a big section here. That's a lot of information about documentation. That's going to be about how the drawing sets are put together, how all the information is coordinated, and all that type of information. We have a whole section here. It's not a giant section, but a section on specifications and the project manual. And then you have a whole systems element here as well, similar to one of the other ones. So the systems will show up in both of these big ones in pretty significant ways. But again, you can kind of follow through and kind of track your thoughts about it. Okay, now we're done with the sort of architectural end of things, and the last one is the construction and evaluation. Now we're back down to the 95 questions, 3 hours and 15. This is mostly about construction observation and then administrative issues. So that's going to be the two biggest ones are going to be those two issues. So it's going to be about payouts, it's going to be about change orders, it's about sort of managing the paperwork process, and then in terms of construction observation, it's going to be about making sure that you're advising the client well and you're giving them good information and that you know what's happening on a job site.